SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man.
Hey, what's up? Tuesday morning. Welcome. September 23rd, 2025. Welcome to the second day of fall. Yesterday, the autumnal equinox. I just love saying that so much. So first day of fall yesterday. Maybe you got a little bit of rain. Maybe it was a little warmer than you thought it was going to be or should be this time of the year. Regardless, we'll do it all over again today. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. We have much to discuss today. Whole lot of stuff going on, including a couple of conversations this morning. Scott Colom is going to join us, the Lowndes County District Attorney, who is running for United States Senate against the incumbent Cindy Hyde-Smith. We'll talk with him this morning at 7:20, find out about some of his plans, why he has chosen to run, and who knows what else. Who knows what else we'll get into with Scott Colom. Also, Gordon Fellows, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association, will be with us to start the 8 o'clock hour. A lot happening in the financial world. We'll look forward to a conversation with Gordon. And then just a lot of other stuff going on. Kamala's got a book out. Lance, I don't know if you knew that or not, but book is coming out. You know, when a book comes out, that means you get a book tour and you get all the promo stuff, and we get to hear.
Is it a wine tour?
Probably. I would imagine that wine will be consumed while.
I thought it was like a review of, like wineries and stuff. Maybe.
No, it's called 107. It is a book recounting the 107 days of her candidacy for vice president. And she's already starting to make the rounds. And one of her first stops was with Rachel Maddow last night, who I guess is still on TV. What does she work, like once a week or something like that? But not that I'm knocking it. By the way, that's a great thing if you can do it. It really is, especially if you get paid a whole lot of money and work one day a week. That's awesome. How a Democratic former presidential candidate that everybody on that side seems to love can screw up an interview with Rachel Maddow is beyond me. And yet, we'll have the audio for you.
Good.
Oh, we'll have it. Pontotoc, you've got intervals of clouds and sunshine this morning. A few clouds later in the day, perhaps a stray shower or thunderstorm. High of 89 with winds out of the south and southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Going to be warm today in Belzona. Partly cloudy, high of 94. South winds for you as well. Woodville, way down in southwest Mississippi, partly cloudy. Stray shower or thunderstorm possible, high near 90. Winds out of the south at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Knew some Talberts from down around Woodville. Any relation?
Distantly.
Okay. Moss Point, a few passing clouds. Otherwise, generally sunny. A high of 89 for you in Moss Point. A little breezier, though, on the coast, 10 to 15 miles per hour. I was looking at the longer term, just for where I am, and I think it's tomorrow when we start to catch a little bit of a break on the temperature. High of 80 on Wednesday, going to be 79 on Thursday. Just looking ahead to a football weekend in Oxford, 83 degrees for the high. But the good news, wind out of the north at 7 miles per hour. So that's going to be a cooler 83. It's not going to be the sweltering, overwhelming humidity 83. That change in wind direction can change everything
Yeah, it was hot yesterday, but there was a nice wind blowing, so it was bearable.
Yeah.
It's still hot.
But that difference in the little breeze out of the north and the breeze out of the south?
Oh, yeah, that's that cool breeze out of the north. Yeah, that's nice.
Just right. Augustus Caesar was born on this day, long time ago. 63 BC, the first Roman Empire.
That'd be a pretty good feeling about yourself. If you're good old Augustus Caesar and carved out the Roman Empire out of the crazy world.
Yeah. I think I said first Roman Empire. He was the first Roman emperor.
That's what I assumed you meant.
Yeah,
he had a lot of the influence and how they were going to dress, the toga parties and the gladiators and all that good old stuff. At least that's what we know about Rome, right?
Yeah.
Oh, good buildings. Yeah, they're still around.
Skip forward about 1,800 years, you hear the name Victoria Woodhull, born in 1838, an American civil rights accident. She was big in the women's suffrage movement, trying to get those voting rights in place. She was a candidate for president in 1872, born in Homer, Ohio. You don't talk about a nickname that you would not like to have. This is it.
You want to be married before you get this nickname, yeah.
In 1869, I'm assuming she got the nickname later than this, Typhoid Mary came along. She was an Irish-American, first person in the United States known to be immune to typhoid fever, but also a carrier of the disease. She was born in Cookstown, Ireland, is thought to have infected at least 51 people in New York City. Typhoid Mary, they called her. One of the best ever. Born on this day in 1930, American singer and pianist who pioneered soul music, Ray Charles, with hits like Georgia on My Mind, Mess Around, Hit the Road, Jack. He was born in Albany, Georgia. You ever just pop a little Ray Charles on and
I love
sit
Ray
back
Charles.
in a chair and maybe close your eyes and let it take you away?
I love, it's just the music is so pure, I mean, it's clean and pure, and then, and then to be able to do everything that he did without sight, the smile, I mean, it's just infectious. I think pretty much his body of work would have to, stand for itself. If you never met the guy, you just listened to him, and you didn't know anything about him. But this dude's a star. And then you learn more about him. You're like, oh my goodness.
Whether you're a Georgia guy, I mean, and the funny thing is, this was long before it was co-opted by the good people at the Augusta National Golf Club. It was a great song. But when ESPN decided that the soundtrack of the Masters was going to be Ray Charles singing Georgia on My Mind, transports me to that magical place. Tom Lester, born in 1938. Who, you might say? Well, he was a television actor. Born in 1938 in Jackson, Mississippi. Do you remember Ebb from Green Acres?
Of course.
Tom Lester. There you go.
I always heard about that. He's from Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have many on TV back in those days from Mississippi.
No, not a bunch. The Boss was born on this day in 1949. Bruce Springsteen, American Grammy and Academy Award-winning singer and songwriter, rock musician, known for Born to Run and Born in the USA. Also for singing with a bunch of mush in his mouth. Hey, listen to him, be like, woo, 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 woo.
It talks that way, too.
Born in Long Branch, New Jersey. A lot of people say Bruce Springsteen overrated. I don't know what even that means, though, when you say overrated. Like, what's overrated? His bank account, the number of hits, the number of people that know his music. You just don't like him as a musician? Okay.
He sold a lot of music, so
yeah,
it kind of speaks for itself, I think. Whether you like music or not, but some people do. There's 8 billion people on the planet. So.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of people that think Taylor Swift is overrated.
Yeah. Or underrated. It just depends your opinion.
Said differently, I don't like Taylor Swift. Got some Taylor Swift news coming up for you in just a little while. Let me give you one thing that happened on this day. A feast fit for a king. It's called King Richard's Feast. This day in 1387, one of the most extravagant medieval English feasts ever recorded, held for Richard II and John of Gaunt in London. The menu included 14 salted oxen, 120 sheep, 1,200 pigeons, and 11,000 eggs.
You got to put that much salt on an oxen. It probably doesn't taste that good. So did they not have something better than an oxen?
You don't think an oxen would be?
I mean, that's like I don't know. You don't see it on the menu anywhere.
No. I mean, we got to be in the beef family at least with oxen, don't we?
Yes.
Bison. Yeah. Might be good.
It may be, but I mean, like I said, it hadn't lasted. It's not on the menus.
You're right. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. Glad to be with you. Thanks for joining us from the start.
I don't know if you ever be mine, but I'll make love to you any old time.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
People want to hear the truth, man. That's what we're going to do.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Great mama, where you been so long?
Oxen is considered beef. The term oxtail is common. Other parts can be eaten as well. Historically, oxen were used as working animals, and their meat was consumed at the end of their working lives.
But that was tasty.
Today, the term oxtail can refer to the tail of any cattle. Hold on a second. Wait, just hold on a second, Lance. You, eater of banged-up canned tuna from a gas station and hoop cheese and whatever else is in those jars next to the register, who will eat anything, all of a sudden, oxtail, oxen that's the limit for you? That's the cutoff?
I'm not saying
that's
I wouldn't.
I bet that's good.
I wouldn't say I wouldn't eat it, but when it's like a delicacy at a royal, banquet.
14 of those bad boys.
They must have been big, too, because, that was a party.
Well, the meat from an ox, and oxtail in particular, had a rich, intense, and robust beefy flavor.
Okay. I like bison, and, it tastes
Can
good.
also have a more pronounced gamey taste compared to meat from younger cattle.
So that's what I thought it would be, real gamey. That'd be my guess, since it was such a working animal.
Yeah. Gamey's
big old
one
chickens.
thing. Leathery and chewy is different.
No, you don't want that. I wonder who they had. They had like the whole crew of dudes over there with hammers just beating it up, just tenderizing it.
I just wonder if this was one of those deals where, because the feast in medieval times was for Richard II and John of Gaunt, was it a deal where they had so much food because they invited so many people? Or was this just like presentation for a couple of royals and they wasted all this?
Yeah, that's my question, too. Is this like 1,000 people showed up, or was this, about 10 or 12 of their best buddies, for a snooker game or something?
Mm-hmm. C Spire text line is open, 601-879-4395. Give your business the edge with gigabit fiber from C Spire Business. Find them online at cspire.com. C Spire, inspired by you. Shaq Bully says bison or buffalo is really good. Yeah,
I like both of those. Yeah, that's more American, though. I guess.
Yeah, everybody's
we
been
just
to
don't
Montana Ted's, right?
Yeah, we don't have the oxen over here. It never made the trip, I guess.
My favorite little grocery store in Ridgeland has oxtail. Sometimes I will use it in place of ham hock in my red beans and rice.
Okay.
James in Oxford suggests oxen is walking beef jerky.
You just go, once one hits the ground, you just go over there and it's beef jerky now.
Yeah. I don't know if they had a feast of oxen for Lewis and Clark when they got home from their exploration of the Pacific Northwest, but that happened on this day in 1806. Returning to St. Louis from, Seattle and Portland, which were not exactly.
Did they protest when they got there?
Yes, that's actually why they left and came back. They did not feel welcome because of the protesters. 1875, Billy the Kid arrested for the first time and jailed after receiving clothing stolen from a Chinese laundry, but he escaped 2 days later. Old Billy the Kid, notorious outlaw of the American Old West, associated with the Lincoln County War in New Mexico. He was born as William Henry McCarty Jr., adopted a number of aliases throughout his life, but most well known as Billy the Kid. Life was characterized by horse thievery, cattle rustling, participation in lawless activity, which made him one of the most famous outlaws in American history.
He was a utility player.
Did it all. Did it all. On this day in 1932, you had the merger of Saudi Arabia. Abdulaziz ibn Saud merged the kingdom of Najd and Hejaz into the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Pretty big land deal. You think they knew what was under the sand at the time?
Probably not.
Or I was going to say absolutely yes.
No, I think Getty was the one that figured that out.
Who was?
J. Paul Getty. He was the guy that developed the Saudi oil fields, found oil there, raised the money for it, built the train in, and basically created their infrastructure. That's where he made all his money.
Okay.
And, that's where you get the Getty art collections and all that good old stuff. But then they took it back. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Saudis did after some time.
Hard to blame them for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I paid it back over many times with their defined investments through the petrodollar exchange and many other things they do. They pour a lot of money into our stock market, and that's part of one of the deals of, that we worked with them to develop, and they would send so much of the revenue into the Western world's financial system.
Yeah.
So it worked out, in the long run.
Supposed to be really tolerant with journalists as well. Although they're working on it. 1955, it was this day that the all-male, all-white jury found Roy Bryant and John William Milam not guilty of the brutal murder of young black teenager Emmett Till in Sumner, Mississippi. It was a landmark case that helped inspire the civil rights movement in the United States. The two later sold an interview admitting to the murder. It's not the only dark day in civil rights history. 1957, a white mob forced 9 black students enrolled at Little Rock Central High School to withdraw, and President Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "Not so fast, my friends," ordered U.S. troops to support the integration of those students at Little Rock Central. That in 1957. 1962, ABC's first color TV series, The Jetsons, created by Hanna-Barbera, made its premiere.
Yeah, and Judy was the first, millennial with colored hair, the daughter. Mm-hmm. Went the white route, not purple, but...
Daughter Judy, his boy Elroy, Jane, his wife.
The dog, too. You'd think they'd have like a mechanical dog, but no, he was real.
Yeah.
He was real.
Yeah. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, directed by George Roy Hill and starring Paul Newman and Robert Redford, premiered at the Roger Sherman Theater in New Haven, Connecticut on this day in 1969. This day in 1980, reggae legend Bob Marley played his final concert at the Stanley Theater in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 1988, Jose Canseco became baseball's first player to steal 40 bases and hit 40 home runs in the same season.
And be bigger than a horse.
The cat is such a dope that we don't really give him credit for how good a baseball player he was.
Man, he could hit, dude.
And run?
And run, hit. He could do it all. The one image, though, that always will stick in your head with Canseco is the ball bouncing off of his head over the fence.
Camped out under a fly ball, looks up, and that thing hits him right on the noggin and bounces over the wall. And you know what? It's the perfect image for Jose Canseco. One of the all-time great films ever, released on this day in 1994. I understand that's a big statement. A lot of films have been released. Directed by Frank Darabont, starring Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman. You know what I'm talking about. Shawshank. The Shawshank Redemption.
Zewantaneo.
And finally, on this day in 2022, St. Louis Cardinals slugger who was back home, Albert Pujols, hit 2 home runs, drove in 5 in an 11-0 win over the Dodgers in Los Angeles, becoming the 4th Major League Baseball player in history to hit 700 career home runs.
Dude get hit, man.
That's a bunch of really good days at the office. There was a story in Sports Illustrated, I don't know, 20 years ago now, about Albert Pujols' vision. I mean, all great hitters have got great vision, the ability to pick up spin, but his was just otherworldly. And wasn't that the story about Ted Williams?
Yeah, he could count the seams, basically.
Yeah. All right, some news headlines for you. Mississippi Attorney General Lynn Fitch, in conjunction with Jackson Mayor John Horn, announced a new partnership yesterday to expand fentanyl harm prevention efforts across the capital city, delivering 50 emergency overdose boxes and a couple thousand fentanyl harm prevention kits to local first responders. The supplies will be distributed to Jackson's police and fire department as part of Fitch's One Pill Can Kill campaign, a public awareness initiative that was launched in 2023 and has really grown. Launched to educate Mississippians about the dangers of fentanyl and provide tools to save lives. The emergency overdose boxes, which were introduced a year later after the program began, can be mounted in public spaces, contain naloxone and other life-saving tools. The harm prevention kits include fentanyl test strips, a safe drug disposal bag, a pill ID card designed to help people determine whether a drug is legitimate. Officials have said that the distribution comes at a pivotal moment. Overdose deaths were down 39% last year, dropped largely credited to the expanded availability of naloxone and fentanyl test strips. The initiative also highlights the role of local law enforcement and firefighters who are making those overdose boxes and prevention kits accessible throughout the city. The boxes, developed in coordination with Harbor Path, a nonprofit dedicated to expanding naloxone access. We're going to take a time out, get some more news headlines and some sports headlines for you as well. That's coming up. MRC on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
He ain't trying to change nobody. He's just trying real hard to adjust.
From the Seabrook.
What are we going to do?
Rise and shine with information and insight.
Check it out.
Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Keep everything in the farm. Upset in every way.
Glad to be with you Tuesday morning. Just kind of getting into the flow of the week. You can join us on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. You never know when you're going to strike a chord. Oxtail or just beef tails nowadays. How many have you seen, how many open have you seen lately? How do you know oxtail in American stores are actually, you do know that oxtail in American stores are actually beef tail. We got it. I make braised oxtail 2 or 3 times a year. Okay. Turning Point USA's American Comeback Tour is going on, even without its leader and founder after the tragic murder of Charlie Kirk. The organization announced the dates of 11 stops, one of which is going to be on the campus of Ole Miss for the series of college campus speaking events. The tour had previously been planned out, but Kirk's shocking death left question marks about the future of TPUSA's activities until the announcement that came out yesterday. They kickstarted the tour last night at the University of Minnesota, featuring the Daily Wire's Michael Knowles. In an interview on Fox and Friends, Knowles confirmed that he would pay tribute to Kirk, who was shot to death at Utah Valley University back on the 10th of September by leaving an empty seat on stage in Charlie Kirk's honor. Ole Miss will host one of the tour stops on October 29th. It's a Wednesday night at the SJB Pavilion on campus at 6:30. Tickets are free. Seat priority goes to students and can be accessed at the Turning Point USA website. Joining Noles on the tour will be a bunch of high-profile figures from the conservative movement, including people like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Glenn Beck, Vivek Ramaswamy, and a whole bunch of others, along with Erica Kirk at some of the stops. Speakers for the Ole Miss event have not yet been announced. As folks continue to mourn the loss of the wildly popular figure in the conservative political movement, Erica Kirk and others have vowed to continue Charlie's legacy in the mission to reach America's young citizens. I assume that that's going to be well attended. Now, I don't know if that means like packed house, or a couple thousand people show up, or a few thousand people show up, or what. The Grammy Museum, Mississippi, going to shimmer and shine a little bit longer with the second continuation of its Taylor Swift exhibit that was announced over the weekend. Taylor Swift Through the Eras has been open over a year now. Started back in August 2024. They were originally supposed to allow it to move on in February, but flocks of Swifties taking visits to the museum in Cleveland saw it extended until the end of August of this year. But fans wanted more, and so now it is staying through December 14th, one day after Swift's 36th birthday. Hard to believe she has already had an 18-year career, but she has, and it's been quite profitable. She's won 14 Grammys, is the only artist to win 4 Album of the Year awards. She wrapped up the Eras Tour last December, breaking an all-time record for over $2 billion in ticket sales, and now is transitioning to her next era with the announcement that her 12th original studio album will drop in October. Just go ahead and get ready, because people will go nuts. The Swift-themed exhibit at the Grammy Museum, Mississippi, is full of artifacts, instruments, memorabilia, representing each of the 11 eras to date. Disney says that Jimmy Kimmel will be back tonight. The company said in a statement shared with multiple media outlets that it took the comedian off the air to, quote, avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for the country, close quote. No, you didn't.
No, his 100,000 listeners were upset.
The advertisers that were spending millions of dollars where you were with revolting. Your affiliate said they were not going to carry one of your flagship programs. That's why you took him off the air. But tonight he will be back. The remarks from Kimmel earned sharp rebukes from the FCC. Kimmel's long been a critic of President Trump and his allies, and the president predicted that Kimmel could be taken off the air next after CBS late-night host Stephen Colbert had his show canceled by Paramount. Kimmel's suspension sparked outrage. This is outrageous, they said, from Democrats and First Amendment advocates, many of whom warned that Trump administration officials were using the power of the government to crack down on speech they didn't like. Some Republicans expressed concern. I guess I'm one of them, at least in regard to the role that the FCC played. I didn't love that. But I certainly got it. The suspension was warranted. The suspension was merited because it had affected the business interests of the parent company. So, how does this play out? Well, shortly after ABC said Kimmel is back, Sinclair said, well, we're out. Sinclair is preempting Jimmy Kimmel Live across its ABC affiliate stations and replacing it with news programming. They are continuing to talk with ABC about the show's potential return. It's always good to hear Hillary Clinton's opinion. She, a couple of days ago, decided to use X. And she said, Jimmy Kimmel and other late-night comedians have certainly said things about me that I found offensive, even outrageous. It never crossed my mind to call up networks and say, hey, get rid of this guy. Because that is not how America works. Douglas Mackey on Twitter reminded her, Madam Secretary, it did, however, cross your mind to call up Senator Klobuchar, the FBI, and the Department of Justice and have me arrested for a humorous meme about your campaign. You then celebrated my unlawful and wrongful conviction, which was later overturned by a federal appeals court. Madam Secretary, sit down.
I bet she loved that.
Yeah. Had to have somebody read it to her. All right, time for your sports headlines, brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Find them online at pearlriverresort.com. Casino thrills, family fun, nonstop entertainment, whether it's live music or comedy shows, a trip to the Dancing Rabbit Golf Club, or maybe it's a stop in at the Sportsbook inside the Golden Moon Casino. They've got you covered at Pearl River Resort. A long farewell message yesterday from Auburn basketball coach Bruce Pearl, who announced his retirement in a video message, a love letter to Auburn fans. Stepping down after 11 years as the head coach and moving into an ambassador's role in the athletic department as special assistant to the athletic director. Bruce Pearl's son, Stephen Pearl, is the new head coach at Auburn. Got a 5-year contract as the new head coach. He has never coached college basketball for anyone but his father. At 65 years old, Bruce Pearl is coming off a season in which he guided Auburn to its second ever Final Four appearance. They earned the number 1 overall seed in last year's NCAA men's basketball tournament. After winning the SEC regular season championship and racking up 32 wins, they lost in the national semifinal to the Florida Gators. During the 11 years at Auburn, Bruce Pearl led the Tigers to 6 NCAA tournament appearances, both of the program's Final Four runs, a share of 3 SEC regular season titles, won the SEC tournament championship twice, 246 wins, 125 losses. Now, here's the interesting part. Bruce Pearl has long been linked to a post-coaching career in politics. Addressed that back in early September following months-long rumors that he was a potential candidate for Tommy Tuberville's open seat, but said yesterday, nah, not going to do that. In a quote in the video, he said, many of you know that I thought and prayed about maybe running for United States Senate, maybe to be the next great senator from the state of Alabama. But that would have required leaving Auburn. Instead, the university has given me an opportunity to stay here and be Auburn's senator.
And ensure that my son has a job for 5 years.
Sad story here. UCF assistant football coach Sean Clark, who was the former head coach at Appalachian State for 5 years, died on Sunday at the age of 50. Been hospitalized after experiencing a medical emergency on September 9th. Scott Frost, the head coach there, said that Clark was doing okay in stable condition. Others close to him said he was making progress in his recovery, but then died unexpectedly on Sunday with his wife Janelle at his side. In his first year at UCF as an offensive line coach, went 40-24 at App State. Former Appalachian State offensive lineman, returning to his alma mater as an offensive line coach, co-offensive coordinator, then took over the program following the 2019 season. Sad, sad story. We're back with you after this on Mornings with Richard Cross.
The news you need.
Every 10, 15 minutes, there's something.
The talk you love.
They really talk about the things that matter. I'm into all that stuff.
Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Back with you. It is Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. Glad to have you along for the ride. Big jackpot tonight with Mega Millions. It's up to $451 million. Tonight's drawing has an estimated cash value of $208,700,000. You can get your tickets for $5. That includes the multiplier. And give yourself a chance to win. Be a big, big payday for you. A Wiggins woman won $100,000 on a ticket from Junior Food Mart in Wiggins. That was on a $2 20x the money scratch-off. Grab the tickets at your local lottery retailers. Mississippi Lottery, mslottery.com. Talking about winning in the lottery. I was perusing the Forbes real-time billionaires list. You know, Elon Musk, richest man in the world, his net worth is $484.8 billion. Said differently, that's about $6 for every person on planet Earth. Just doesn't make it sound like as much. I don't know. There are 8 billion people on the earth. Give every one of them a $5 bill and a 1.
Yeah, it wouldn't go too far, would it?
And what's crazy is on these real-time billionaire tracker lists, this is based on what's publicly known in terms of assets for these guys.
I would go with Putin as number one, me personally. But
well, maybe. I guess he's got access to whatever he wants in the Russian state.
Or from, anyone.
But the daily change is the thing that's fascinating to me. So Larry Ellison is the second richest man in the world at $392 billion. He's the founder of Oracle. His net worth yesterday increased by $21.5 billion. I mean, Lance, the change in his net worth yesterday was more than the net worth of the... Hold on, I see how far I got to scroll down. Is it going to be inside the top 100? Oh, where do we go? Where do we go? Let's see here.
Like what he made in a day is more than how many billionaires is what you're looking at, right? Like
yes.
What does that put him to?
Francois Pinault and family.
Yeah.
Oh, here you go. Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch, one of the richest people in the world, has a net worth of $24 billion a year. $24 billion. Yesterday, on paper, the net worth of the world's second richest man went up by more than the entire net worth of the 94th richest man in the world, Rupert Murdoch. That's mind-boggling.
Yeah. Well, it's always mind-boggling to me to hear when you're listening to, like, historical or, you're watching a documentary and people go, a working class home in this neighborhood. I'm like, well, there's only like 900 billionaires in the country. Mm-hmm. Like how many? We're talking about 98% of the country's working class, right? So most 98% of neighborhoods would be working class. It just seems almost like no reason to say that. It's like a working class neighborhood, and it's like pretty much everybody's working class if you compare it to.
You got to work these days, no doubt.
But think, 902 billionaires in China. You got 516 billionaires, and in India, 205 billionaires. So
they're getting after it. Those guys still live in working neighborhoods. All right, here we go. New SEC schedule is going to be announced tonight. There was a leak yesterday telling us who the annual opponents are going to be for all 16 teams in the league. Biggest mystery has been that. Who's it going to be? Well, we found out yesterday from Mississippi State the future annual opponents. That's for the next 4 years, starting in 2026, going through the 2029 season. For Mississippi State, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt. For Ole Miss, LSU, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma. SEC officials designed the slate by honoring traditional long-standing rivalries. Games like the Georgia-Florida game, the state rivalry games like between the Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Alabama, Auburn, etc., and then attempting to balance the schedules based on winning percentage as best as possible. It's going to be a 9-game schedule. The formula of records that the SEC used to calculate how to slot teams came from a combined league winning percentage during the last 4 years, where, for example, Ole Miss had the 4th best winning percentage among the 16 teams in the SEC. This is only a 4-year scheduling format. They will look again before the 2030 season and see if it still makes sense and if they need to make some tweaks along the way. 7 o'clock Eastern, so 6 o'clock our time tonight, SEC Network, ESPN2. They will release the full 9-game schedules for all 16 teams. Some teams are going to have 5 home SEC games. Some of them are going to have 4. That's your sports update this morning, brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Find them online at pearlriverresort.com. You're not going to believe what the left is saying about Charlie Kirk's memorial service. Or maybe you will.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Coffee, conversations, and clarity. What a great way to start your Mississippi day. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
But she always knows her place. She's got style, she's got grace. She's a winner. She's a lady. Whoa, whoa, whoa. She's a lady. Talking about that little lady.
Mornings with Richard Cross. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for being here, for spending part of your morning with us as you get out the door, getting kids to school, getting yourself ready, and pouring one more cup of coffee before you head out for work. Appreciate you being with us. By the way, if you've got an Alexa device just kind of sitting on the counter in your kitchen and you didn't realize this, you can always ask Alexa to play SuperTalk Mississippi. You can get Mornings with Richard Cross just like that in your kitchen. You probably don't want it too loud. Like, you're still kind of waking up. You might make the dogs go crazy. I don't know.
Hey, have you had time to, or lately, have you done the back porch coffee lately? Now that the weather's changing, or
it has not. It has not felt temperature-wise where I was like drawn to that.
Not yet.
I need a little bit more nip in the air. Have not had that. I'm hopeful that over the next couple of days we're going to have one of those mornings. Let me see. I got the 10-day right here.
You got some potential for rain. Yeah.
When I wake up Friday morning.
That might be the window you have.
And it's 58 degrees, 57 degrees. I will probably be consuming my coffee on the back porch.
You need a hunting jacket to do that.
I'm gonna find my way to the golf course on Friday also, just if we're being completely honest.
Yeah, hopefully it'll day with nothing but tailwinds, hitting it long.
That's right. This hour of the show is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough. There's all kinds of stuff you got to deal with if you're struggling with HR and benefits and payroll. You're not alone, though. MWG Employer Services is here to help. They can provide a full range of employer services plus a custom plan that fits you. Call today at 601-206-7966 or go to MWGEmployerServices.com. Somebody said, Gina Mendenhall says, everybody knows that the state fair brings cool weather. Well, let's move the state fair to July then. Gene, if that is a scientifically proven fact, I want the state fair to start on August 15th because by then we're ready for the cool. 11 days, I believe, until the beginning of the state fair. It'd be great. Scott Colom will join us in the 7:37 segment, so about half an hour from right now. Lowndes County District Attorney, candidate for United States Senate, running against Cindy Hyde-Smith. So, what did you see when you watched live or you watched clips of the Charlie Kirk Memorial Service? You know, we have this prism and I guess it's unique to each of us. We have these glasses through which we see the world, and the way we see the world largely is shaped by our own personal experiences and our own beliefs. And you have heard me say before that one of the more confusing things for me in life is how somebody that looks a lot like me, has a family makeup that is comparable to mine, is roughly the same age, has roughly the same education level, maybe even lives in the exact same place, can take an issue, take an event, take a person, and look at that event, and I can go, wow, that was incredible. And this person standing next to me that looks roughly like I do, has roughly the same level of education, has a somewhat similar family, socioeconomically in roughly the same place. That person standing next to me can look at the exact same event and go, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, how do we get to that place? Because, here's what I'm asking. I shared this with you yesterday. I thought that the memorial service for Charlie Kirk on Sunday was incredible. I thought it was extremely moving. By the way, I went into that not knowing exactly what to expect. Okay, is it going to feel like a political rally? Is it going to feel like a funeral? Is it going to feel like a memorial service? Is it going to feel sad? Is it going to... And I didn't know exactly what to expect. But I did not anticipate that it was going to feel like a traditional Sunday morning worship service where there was a hymnal in every pew and, you heard a message and maybe there was I didn't think it was going to be that, but I didn't know exactly what it was going to be. And looking back, I would say it was a hybrid of all of those things, right? There were remembrances of Charlie Kirk. There were speeches that were somewhat politically charged. There absolutely was a worship aspect to it. But here's the thing about a memorial service. By the way, you heard multiple people said they thought we were going to have a funeral. It's turned into a revival. Okay. The thing about a memorial service is it is to honor someone who, or sometimes multiple someones who are no longer with us. It is for that particular person. And so if you die, you may leave instructions for what you want your funeral to look like. And that's either selfish or incredibly thoughtful, right? I mean, you could say, well, it's my funeral. I want it done this way. Or you could say, what difference does it make? I'm not there. Let the people who are left behind remember me however they want to remember me. It doesn't matter. I don't care how you view a funeral. It's fine. Whatever. Here's what I'm getting at. You had to be one of those people that looks at the world in a completely different way than I do to come away with, man, that Charlie Kirk memorial service was the most hate-filled thing I've ever seen. Could you believe the political rhetoric coming from those microphones? That was pure hate speech. Or my favorite one, it looked just like a Nazi rally. Because the truth of the matter is, that is what some of the left is saying, including Pastor Dr. Kevin Young, who during the memorial service tweeted, Pastor here, FYI, Fourth Right political rallies are not memorial services. All right. Pastor here, he says, and by the way, he's got a website to prove that he's a pastor. He's actually been the leader of multiple large churches. Kevin Young's bio says he's an author, pastor, coach, and avid weightlifter, graduate of Cedarville University, Dallas Theological Seminary, and Portland Seminary. While he's been fortunate to pastor several of the largest and fastest-growing churches in America, his current work is as lead clergy of Christ's Table, a grassroots hybrid ministry dedicated to bringing advocacy, community, and spiritual resources to those who are disappointed, disillusioned, or done with the church. Sounds like a noble calling. I have a problem with a pastor, someone who purportedly is a preacher of the gospel of Christ, calling 277,000 people who are there in person and another 100 million around the globe who are celebrating the memory of someone that they admired, Nazis. I've got a problem with that. I think, Kevin Young, you are not qualified to be and I'm going to use air quotes here and a lower P, pastor. I think you disqualify yourself when you refer to people who see the world differently than you do, Nazis. That doesn't strike me as very Christ-like. I don't know a lot about Dallas Theological Seminary, but I'm assuming that was not one of the classes they taught. How to slander followers of Jesus in their chosen path of worship. 101? Was that an elective or was that required? Oh, but Kevin M. Young, Dr. Pastor, was not the only one. No. We'll be right back.
From the Venable...
You're waking up to what matters. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Walks down the street, he says, why am I short of attention? Got a short little span of attention, and oh, my nights are so long. Where's my wife and family? What if I die here? Who'll be my role model? Now that my role model is gone. He ducked back down the alley with some roly-poly little bat-faced girl. All along,
good to be with you this morning. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. I want to take you back to a place of, for many of you, not all of you, many of you for your youth. I want to paint a picture that I think you will remember. And I don't think this is limited to a specific type of church. But just like, so you know where I'm coming from. I grew up in the Church of Christ. Worshipped in the Church of Christ for the first 40 years of my life. My family now goes to Christ Presbyterian Church in Oxford. But I think this will apply. I remember vividly, usually in smaller churches, usually on both sides of the stage, there was a wooden board on the wall. And that board had little slots in it. And you would see on that board the order of worship for a given Sunday morning. And it usually had the numbers of the songs that corresponded with the pages in the songbook. And there was a formula. There was a formula for how it worked, right? It was welcome and announcements, 2 songs, prayer, 1 song, communion, sermon, 1 song, invitation, everybody dismissed. Might be a little bit of variation, but generally speaking, that was the order. So you remember that, right? There was a prescribed order for the church service on Sunday morning. And it didn't matter if it was July 1st or December 31st or February 12th. Every Sunday morning, it was basically the same. there is not a spelled out, prescribed, engraved in stone instruction manual that comes from the Bible or anywhere else that I can think of that says this is how a memorial service must be conducted. Remember I said a second ago, the thing about a funeral is you can either spell out, hey, this is how I want my funeral to be, or the people who are you're no longer living with because you're dead can say, this is how the funeral is going to be. But there's not a manual that says it has to be this way. And yet, Don Lemon wants to point out that, this wasn't a memorial service. Don Lemon, don't play him very often. He's really not worth the bandwidth. But I thought this was funny. Don Lemon is in full-on gotcha mode with this clip. I actually agree with almost everything he says. I just don't think it's a gotcha.
It was a revival meeting wrapped in a memorial, a political rally dressed as church. And by the end of the night, it was clear this was not only about Charlie Kirk's death. It was about his afterlife in politics.
Pause. Yes! That's exactly what it was. And there was nobody pretending that it wasn't. When you hear people standing at the podium and going, Charlie, we're not going to let your movement die. This created a revival. They thought this was a funeral that turned into a revival. This movement is going to grow. 62,000 high school and college campuses have reached out about either getting involved with or starting a Turning Point USA chapter. Yes, it's a movement. But Don Lemon's like, this was about his political afterlife. Thanks, Captain Obvious. That was kind of the goal for a lot of people.
Donald Trump stood on the stage like a man at the center of a prophecy. He called Charlie Kirk a martyr. Other politicians promised to carry out his mission. The crowd cheered as if the passing of the man had lit some sort of sacred fire.
It kind of did, didn't it? Didn't the way that Charlie Kirk was murdered, the jarring nature of that, the fact that it was right there in front of us, that the video was right there to see, didn't it kind of light a fire? Which might be for the left the most disappointing or the scariest part of this whole thing is, good grief, they were pretty fired up before. Did this create a movement that is going to be unstoppable?
To me, this was not mourning, this was a mobilization. And here is where we have to tell the truth here. What we saw in that arena was not simply faith-finding public expression. It was religious nationalism on full display. That is the truth. That is my truth. This is my freedom of expression. This is my First Amendment right to be able to tell you the truth.
Oh, now he got you. He is exercising his First Amendment right to tell you what it was that happened in that arena. So, Don Lemon, what was it that happened in that arena? He said it was Christian nationalism. It wasn't just worship. I kind of think nobody claimed that it was just one of anything. So Don Lemon's, gotcha. You took Jimmy Kimmel's First Amendment rights, but I'm going to exercise mine, and I'm going to tell you what happened. We agree, Don. We agree, Don Lemon. You're right. Now, what's the slippery slope for both Republicans, but more specifically for Christians? When he mentions Christian nationalism, I don't think per se there's anything wrong with Christian nationalism. In fact, our country was founded on religious beliefs, but it was also founded on religious freedom and a separation of church and state. So it is not only good, but noble to be a champion of the United States, to be a nationalist. It is beyond noble. In fact, it is the most important thing in our lives to be Christian. And those two things can be blended. The problem becomes worship of the state, worship of the nation, and losing focus that it's God and his son Jesus that are supposed to be at the center of that. And that's where it can get really murky really, really quickly. There are a couple of other people that characterize this differently. This guy who goes by the Omni-Liberal on X, he's like an online streamer opinion guy. He says the Charlie Kirk Memorial, he's got it in quotes, is indistinguishable from a Nazi rally and blank anyone who wants to pretend it's not. That's incredibly tolerant of you, pal. Then there was this from, who we got here? Let's see. Scott Walker retweeted it. Oh, they got rid of it. They got rid of it. There was a picture of Erica Kirk standing at the podium at the end next to the President of the United States, had his arm draped around a grieving widow, and she was holding up 3 fingers. Pinky, pointer, and thumb. Was holding those 3 fingers high in the air. Think hook 'em horns plus a thumb. There are some that have said that is the sign of the devil. And she is putting that on display for the entire world to see. And then there were some who looked at that picture with her with those 3 fingers raised, looking skyward, symbolically toward heaven, where she believes her late husband now is. There were some who saw that signal that she had in the air and realized that is sign language for I love you. Which is not quite the demonic symbol that some wanted you to believe that it was. The playbook apparently has the same pages in every chapter. At what point does the whole definition of insanity thing, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome, at what point does that resonate for Democrats? For the left? At what point do you go, this isn't working, we've got to find another message. We've got to find a message that connects with the American people in a way that apparently this message of love is connecting with the over 100 million that watched and the 277,000 that attended the memorial service. Because I don't know that the message of hate and division is connecting. And the gaslighting that it's actually the right that hates and divides doesn't seem to be resonating either.
From the Seabrook.
Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
When they ask where you heard it, you tell them.
I know you heard it right here.
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Maybe I'll start tonight.
Good to be with you. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. I am happy to welcome back someone who has been on this show a number of times, although in a much different role than he's sliding in today. Scott Colom, who is the Lowndes County District Attorney and is running for United States Senate against Cindy Hyde-Smith and others that may end up in that race as well. We visited a number of times when we've been in West Point at Sally Kate Winters Family Services. Scott, obviously the district attorney and very involved in the prosecution of some of those nasty cases. Scott, it's good to see you this morning. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, and I think we've got a lot of ground to cover. I do want to give you the opportunity just right out of the gate to tell us why it is that you're running for Senate.
Thanks. Richard, I'm a seventh-generation Mississippian. My wife and I, when we graduated from schools outside the state, we both chose to come back to Mississippi to really give back to the state that we love. We're raising our kids here. We've started businesses here. As you know, I was blessed to be elected district attorney in 2015. I've worked hard to keep my community safe at the courtroom fair. Proud that I have a 94% conviction rate. Tried the toughest cases, murders, rapes, sexual assaults of children. And my big frustration with our current senator is I think she's putting D.C. politics above what's best for us. When it comes to the terror policy, for example, Richard, I think that we got to have a senator that's focused on terror policy that works for Mississippi, works for our farmers, works for our consumers, and I don't think that's happening right now. I also am a big believer that we've got to raise the minimum wage. Richard, we haven't raised it in who knows how long, and Mississippians deserve a raise, especially with the way costs are. I'm also out of the box. I think that we need to have no income tax for teachers and cops. And the reason I believe that, Richard, is because teachers and cops, they're in unique professions in the sense that they have a lot of responsibility. Teachers are responsible for our future. Cops are responsible for keeping our communities safe and our courtrooms fair. The federal government doesn't do very much directly to help them. So I don't think they should be taxed at all from the federal income level. And the final point, Richard, I think is very important is, how many people do you know in Mississippi that make over $600,000 a year? You don't know many, Richard, because they live in New York, they live in California, they live in Boston. And Cindy Hyde-Smith, she just voted to cut taxes 3% for people who make over $600,000 a year, permanent tax cut. And she paid for those tax cuts by putting the health care of at least 140,000 Mississippians at risk and putting at least eight hospitals at risk of closing. And when I'm elected to the Senate, Richard, I'm going to repeal those health care cuts and I'm going to save our hospitals.
So those kind of your platform, those talking points, you certainly know that campaigning is different than governing. And there are a lot of people that have ideas when they are campaigning. They say, this is what I'm going to do when I get there. And then reality, they get to D.C. and there's not a lot that gets done unless you're in the majority. What makes you think that you will have the ability to deliver on some of those campaign promises when you actually get to D.C., as opposed to just using those as kind of talking points within a campaign?
Well, I'll tell you, they're more than talking points to me. They're values. And I'll tell you, here's where I think I'll be different. Because I'll be a common sense, independent senator. Too much of our politics, both on the left, the right, Republican and Democrat, is all about the political party. And people, senators, not just on the Democrat side, not just on the Republican side, are willing to give away their voice for the party. And I'll take an example. Look at Senator Lisa Murkowski when it came down to the bill that just passed. She got a lot of carve-outs for Alaska.
She did. Right?
Because she used her vote as her voice for Alaska. And we've got to go back to senators in the tradition of Thad Cochran. Me and Thad Cochran and I may not have agreed on everything, but I knew that his number one priority was looking out for Mississippi, bringing resources back to our state. And if you use your vote as your voice for Mississippi and not get caught up in national politics so much, I think you could be a lot more effective.
You'll forgive me for pushing back on that a little bit when you say I'm going to be an independent senator, and yet when you ran for district attorney, you accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars from an organization that was funded by George Soros, who is kind of the ultimate Democrat and whose idea of the justice system. And by the way, I'm going to give you credit. I don't feel like you have operated as a district attorney in the way that a lot of DAs and a lot of law enforcement people have that have been funded by George Soros. So I'll give you credit for that. But I don't understand how you say I'm going to be an independent senator, and yet your campaign in 2015 accepted more than $700,000 from a Soros-backed organization.
Well, I didn't accept the money. They gave it to a political action committee.
Right.
You said that a couple of times, and I wanted to correct you. I didn't accept the money. But here's what's important, Richard, is over the last 2 years that I've been district attorney, the citizens of my community have seen that I'm an independent thinker. Nobody tells me what to do. I do what I think is right. based on the crime, based on keeping my community safe. And those are the values I've had as district attorney. And that's why I've continued to get reelected. 2019, I ran unopposed. 2023, I won 10 by 10 points. And the other thing I want to point out is I don't think it's fair, Richard, that nobody ever talks about who's giving money to Senator Hyde-Smith. If you look at her campaign finance reports in 2025, she's getting a lot of money from corporate PACs. Well, why are they giving her money? Why are they giving her money? Because she's voting to cut taxes for people that live in New York, Boston. She's caught up in D.C. politics. So if we're going to talk about campaign finance, we got to talk about it both ways.
Okay.
And the final point I want to make.
Well, I'm good with that, but go ahead. Go ahead.
I agree that there is too much money in politics. There's too much. The solution to that is small dollars have to counterbalance that by supporting candidates that they believe are going to be independent and they're going to be Mississippi first type people. And all I'm telling the listeners of this podcast is that's who I am. Those are my values. And that's why I've kept getting reelected. And I'm proud to be a seventh generation Mississippian that's always going to look out for our state.
Yeah. One point of order, available as a podcast, but live on 12 radio stations across the entire state of Mississippi. I guess maybe the only thing that I agree with Bernie Sanders on is that, yes, we do need campaign finance reform. So, yeah, I'm completely with you there. But it does feel like kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth when you're quick to say, oh, no, that was a PAC that supported me. That wasn't money that went directly to my campaign. But then you immediately point to, yeah, but Cindy Hyde-Smith got money from PACs to support her campaign. So I feel like it's one way or the other on that. But I suppose we could kind of get off in the weeds in that and miss the larger point in this. What's been the response from people that you visited with, Republicans and Democrats, independents alike in Mississippi, to your candidacy?
Well, they've been excited, honestly, because I think there's a lot of frustration with D.C. politics, Richard. I think that everybody who has common sense recognizes we've become too partisan as a country. And we can't admit that the other side does anything well. For example, I think President Trump is doing a great job securing the border. I think he should get credit for that. I think President Biden did not do a good job securing the border. I also agree with the approach on H-1B1 visas in that I don't like foreigners getting jobs that Mississippians could get. Because I can tell you as a district attorney, I see a lot of people out there who could use those jobs and they can take care of their families. They can help grow our state. And so when I say I want to be an independent voice, I don't think about issues in the lens of D.C. politics. I think about it through the lens of what's best for my state. And that's why I've been able to get reelected as district attorney. That's why I have a high conviction rate. Yeah. That's why my cases don't get overturned on appeal. I mean, I'm not afraid to run on my record, Richard. And here's the thing that I want everybody out there listening to ask. Throughout this campaign, Rich, I want you to ask this too, because I know Senator Hyde-Smith, she'll come on your program.
She will.
Why doesn't she ever talk about what she's done for Mississippi? She's talking about me. She's making up names. She's attacking me. I want to focus on my record and her record. And she can't focus on her record, Richard, because she is too focused on D.C. politics. She's voted against money that's gone to our cities to build roads. She's voted against money for the Amtrak expansion to New Orleans. Now she shows up to the ribbon cuttings, but she's not telling people she's voting against the money. You know this, Richard. That Crockett will be rolling over his grave.
I got to ask you about this because we only got a minute left, and we'll talk again. Okay. I promise, as long as you're willing to come back. I got to ask you about the parody phone call. I was critical of that. Yes. I said, you may have heard what I said, you may not have. If somebody advised you to do that, you should fire them. And if you did that on your own, you better hire somebody to help you with messaging. Tell me about the parody phone call.
Well, here's what's interesting about that, Richard. I don't know if you follow that TikTok trend. Let me tell you what's interesting about it. The TikTok trend is all about forgiveness. The point of it is, despite you stopping me from becoming a federal judge, I'm not running against you for personal reasons, right? That was the point of it. But here's the difference between me. Now, if I was a normal politician, I will point out, Richard, that Senator Hyde-Smith had the most cringe joke of all time. She talked about going to a public hang. But I'm not trying to get people to vote out of hate for Cindy Hyde-Smith. I'm trying to get them to vote out of love for Mississippi. What's best for our state? That's my message. let's focus on Mississippi. We can't afford to have a senator that's focused on D.C. politics.
Scott Colom, Lowndes County District Attorney. He is running for United States Senate against Cindy Hyde-Smith and perhaps others. I appreciate the time and hope we can visit again soon.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it.
We'll take a time out. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
From the
.3 Talk, Mississippi.
You heard it here first.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Here comes the news.
Once again, good morning to you. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. I appreciate the district attorney from Lowndes County, Scott Colom, joining us and talking about his candidacy for United States Senate. And I anticipate that we'll have a chance to visit with Scott Colom more as the election nears. We are 13 months away, give or take, from midterms. And important midterms for both sides. Democrats are looking to try to regain the House and the Senate. Republicans view it as vitally important to maintain control in the House and the Senate. And early polling numbers show that in some key areas, key issues, Donald Trump has not only maintained but has actually gained support in terms of the issues that are important to Americans. Chief among them, crime. There are probably some of you that listened and said, oh, you should have pushed back on this or that he said. That's not a couple of things. One, limited amount of time. And two, I'm going to allow, when we visit with candidates for office, I don't want those conversations to be combative. If there's something that I feel like needs to be pushed back on, I will. Like I did on the campaign finance. I asked Scott Colom about the contributions from, and by the way, if you want the specifics, so there was a PAC that is now defunct called Mississippi Safety and Justice that was funded by Soros-backed organizations. There was what was called the Safety and Justice Network, a project of left-leaning billionaire George Soros that used a network of similarly named state-level PACs to finance the campaigns of progressive Democratic candidates for district attorneys in more than a dozen of America's cities. You wouldn't necessarily put Lowndes County at the top of one of the major American cities, but Scott Colom's campaign did receive money. Now, as he pointed out, he said, I didn't receive money from George Soros. It was money from a PAC that then spoke positively about that candidacy. And the specifics of that, Mississippi Safety and Justice received $926,500 in contributions directly from George Soros, 100% of the organization's funding. Mississippi campaign finance records revealed that during the 2015 election, the organization paid campaign communications firm Berlin Rosen roughly $716,000 for campaign ads, communications, and polling that supported Colom's campaign. So those are the specifics of that. No, it was not money that directly went into Scott Colom's campaign. So that in full disclosure. And he made the point that Cindy Hyde-Smith and her candidacy received money from out-of-state PACs as well. And again, as you heard me say a second ago, you can't push back on, well, it was a PAC that put money in the direction of my campaign and then immediately call out PAC money that supported Cindy Hyde-Smith. It's one or the other. And I do kind of look at what Bernie Sanders says and says, hey, our campaign finance system is broken. I don't dislike Scott Colom as a person. I don't know him well. I have had a chance to visit with him on and off the radio a number of times. When it comes to, I mentioned Sally Kate Winters Family Services. His office has worked in conjunction with them and has produced a number of very, very important wins and outcomes in terms of prosecuting those who commit crimes against children. And kudos to him and to his office for that incredibly important work. My guess is that Cindy Hyde-Smith's campaign staff and she herself would push back on the idea that she has not done things for Mississippi. In fact, she, the last time we visited with her, pointed out that there was a reason that she voted against one of the specific bills I think that he was referencing to, and it was because of all the other stuff that was in it. It wasn't a clean bill. It's going to be an interesting campaign. It certainly is. And I appreciate Scott coming on to talk a little bit about that. As we move toward the 8 o'clock hour, Gordon Fellows is going to join us. He is president of the Mississippi Bankers Association. We'll get an update from him, what he sees as the direct result of last week's Fed ruling that they were dropping interest rates, the key interest rate, by a quarter point, and there's an expectation that there are going to be a couple of more drops of the key rate before the end of the year. Also, some of the check and mail fraud issues that are related to federal payments to individuals. We'll talk about that and more. Appreciate you being with us. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Thanks for starting your day with us. We got an hour left and a whole lot to get to. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. More MRC coming up right after the news.
Trouble and I lived a life of pain. I sit back and let that water heal my brain. I'm letting go of all my trouble. I think I'll be right here to stay. Well, the water keeps churning while my poor heart is burning. Muddy water, take my pain away.
Check this out. Now what can be offered to you?
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Information.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Richard on the radio, praying for another black domino. Oh, Lord, you gotta help.
Do you have the dream of owning land? Maybe it's a big place where you make the hunting rules. Maybe it's a smaller tract where you want to build your dream home or just a cabin for a weekend getaway. Maybe you recognize that land is a great investment because they're just not making any more. Please let me tell you about my friends at David Fisher Land Company, based in Inverness in the heart of the Mississippi Delta, servicing all of Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana. David Fisher Land Company has 40 years of experience in farm and recreational land brokerage, land appraisals, farmland management. Whether you're looking for 100 acres or several thousand, or maybe an equity share in a hunting club from DeSoto County to the South Delta, David Fisher Land Company is ready to earn your business. Their website, davidfisherland.com. Reach out to David, Jack, or Travis, or go to their website, davidfisherland.com. You do that, and you can see properties that they have listed for sale, like the one that is called Chula Lake, 250 acres, give or take, located between the hills of Holmes County and Delta cropland. Not too late with deer season just along the way to find your perfect hunting spot. Easy to get to if you're coming from the Jackson area, easy to get to if you're coming from the Delta or North Mississippi as well. Again, between Holmes County and Delta cropland, it's priced under $1 million. For right around 250 acres. I know that's a lot of money, but if you've priced land, if you're in that search, you know that it is expensive. Check them out, davidfisherland.com. Reach out to David, Jack, or Travis, davidfisherland.com. It's David Fisher Land Company. Good to be with you this morning. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. The C Spire text line is always open to you. 601-879-4395. Your team has you covered on the field. C Spire has you covered everywhere else with the best technology for home work and on the go, backed by local 24/7 customer support. Learn more at cspire.com. C Spire, inspired by you. 601-879-4395. Happy to be joined by Gordon Fellows this morning. He is the president of the Mississippi Bankers Association. There is a lot that is going on in the financial world. Gordon, we got the news last week, as I think was expected by most, that the Fed was going to drop the key interest rate by 25 basis points, or a quarter of a percentage point. As you have talked with your constituents, your bankers across the state of Mississippi, was there a collective sigh of relief of finally they're dropping the rate?
That is a good question. Thanks for having me, Richard. And I got to say, there are certainly banks in the Delta that are willing to make anybody a loan to buy that David Fisher piece of property there in Tula. So maybe a bank can help you out. But it was certainly time for a cut. This is something we've been talking about for quite a while. One of the things that I thought I might share with your audience, Richard, is sort of how the process at the Fed works, because I think that's something that's often sort of misunderstood or maybe underappreciated.
Sure.
A lot of people think of the Fed as this sort of centralized location only in Washington. The chairman kind of runs everything, and it's really almost a government, sort of big government kind of institution. A lot of people aren't familiar with, and that's the centralized structure. That's true for the centralized structure, which is called the Federal Reserve Board. But there's also a dispersed structure within the Fed. And a lot of people aren't familiar with that. And so there are 12 regional Fed banks. They have different states all over the country. We're a split state. So everywhere from north of Highway 82 falls under the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Everywhere south of Highway 82 falls under Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. And those banks, regional Fed banks, work with the local banks around the state and around their regions to support economic growth. People aren't really familiar with this, but those banks have presidents. Those presidents, like any other bank presidents, are appointed by their boards. There are seats on the Open Market Committee, which is the committee that sets the interest rates that rotate between the regional banks. And so because we're a split state, usually the president of the Atlanta Fed or the St. Louis Fed is on the Open Markets Committee. Currently, the president of the St. Louis Fed is. He's got to vote on the rates. And so part of the job of those regional banks is to get out into the states, to get out into the local economies, and to provide sort of on-the-ground feedback into the process, to sort of balance with the data analysis the central bank does. And so just before the cut a couple weeks ago, the president of the St. Louis Fed was actually in Greenwood talking to farmers, and he had an event at Mississippi Valley State talking to students and small business owners in the Delta. So that's an example of how the local banks pull data from, actual people, real business owners, real people in the economy, and flow that data into the rate cutting or the rate setting process. And so
did I read
really important, I think, for people to realize.
Gordon, did I read somewhere last week or a couple of weeks ago that that representative from the St. Louis bank was not necessarily for rate cuts?
No, he voted for the cut. He's on the Open Market Committee. He voted for the cut. He gave a speech. His name is Alberto Mausoleum, and he gave a speech at the Brookings Institute last week.
Okay,
and it kind of indicated that he would favor another cut or two this year. The president of the Atlanta Fed, Raphael Bostic, who is not on the Open Market Committee right now, but was on the Open Market Committee last year, has sort of said he thinks maybe one cut's enough. So you're hitting on a point that's accurate. There's not really clear consensus within all the Fed stakeholders of what the next steps are. And if you think about that, that makes sense, right? When over the last 5 years, when the pandemic started and the way we worked changed, it became sort of apparent quickly that there was going to need to be stimulus in the economy to keep the economy running. So The Fed took steps and Congress also took steps, right? And that generated a whole bunch of economic activity. And it became apparent sort of early in the Biden administration that maybe we had too many steps that we took. So the Fed raised rates to cool things off a little bit. And both of those are pretty straightforward decisions at the time. Now, we're kind of in this sort of the end of the tail of all of that, and really kind of figuring out what the next steps are I think a lot less clear. And so, the Fed has what's called a dual mandate. Right. They have to try to keep the value of money stable, right? So minimal inflation. And then they also have a mandate to ensure we have, as a country, like the most engaged workforce we can have, right? So you want interest rates to generate enough economic activity for there to be a robust hiring market, but not so much economic activity that the value of people's savings is eroded because of inflation. And so figuring out how to thread that needle is going to be challenging over the next couple meetings, I think.
Visiting with Gordon Fellows, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association, so many times people equate directly mortgage rates with the key federal rate, or the rate that is set by the Federal Reserve. They're related, but it's like they're distant cousins. They're not brothers or sisters. In terms of the effect that rate cuts, whether it's just this one or it's multiple cuts before the end of the year, what is the direct effect on mortgage rates that people will see? Because I feel like that's maybe the thing that most people look at to be like, okay, can I afford to buy a house right now? Can I refinance right now to save some money? And that's not always a direct corollary. It's not necessarily linear.
Right. No, I think you're right. That's where people sort of see this the most. The short answer is, if you kind of compare the mortgage rates today, a 30-year fixed rate average is around 6.35. That's down about 0.2% from a month ago, but it's about even to this time last year. The mortgage market has been fairly stable at around and again, I'm using a 30-year fixed rate at around 6 and some change for a while now. It got up to higher than 7 for a little bit. At sort of the height of the pandemic. I think it's probably going to continue to sort of ratchet its way down slowly as the cuts that were made last week sort of are realized in the economy. But there's also still some challenging demand for housing and supply, right? And so that sort of what's the supply of housing, how fast are houses selling, how many people are in the market, all of that also has an impact on mortgage rates in the same way that any type of market is for goods or services is impacted by supply and demand.
Visiting with Gordon Fellows, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association. We're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we'll talk about some changes in federal payments in terms of paper checks going away. And a little bit more. In fact, I'll ask Gordon when we come back, what should be the rate for a robust housing market? We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm, SuperTalk TV, and on your local SuperTalk Mississippi radio stations.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
The monitor switch lets you hear
breaking news. Super Talk Mississippi.
My transistor radio comes from far away. And when it's night over here, over there, it's a breaking day.
Appreciate you being with us this morning. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk Mississippi. Gordon Fellows is my guest, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association. Gordon and I have known each other for a long time. It's good to visit and catch up this morning. I've spoken with a number of bankers asking, hey, where should the interest rates be? And I know as consumers we're like 0.0. That would be great if we didn't have to pay interest. And you do have people that are in those loans that they got into, 6-7 years ago, where they're in a, 2.85% mortgage on a 15-year note, or the 3.5% note that they got on a 30-year, fixed rate. And that is a great, great place to be, but that's also a historic low. What's the perfect number? What's the sweet spot in terms of mortgage rates that most bankers would say, hey, this is a number that really makes sense for the long term?
I think that is an excellent question, Richard, and I'm probably not the best person to answer that. That's probably something that economists and mortgage bankers would arm wrestle over for hours. I can tell you, I think the real challenge for the Fed is going to be figuring out how to get to that number on housing, but also continuing to ratchet inflation down. Right, their inflation target is 2%. We've continued to be over 2% for quite a while, and everybody sort of feels expanded prices in their pocketbook personally, right? And I think the chairman said in his remarks last week, it's probably going to be 2027 before we get inflation ratcheted all the way down back to 2. And so if that's the case, if it's still going to take us another 18 months or so to get to 2% on the current trajectory for inflation, it's going to be hard for them to reduce mortgage rates a whole lot further because they don't want to turn inflation back on, right? The other thing that I think that adds a lot of complexity to this is on the workforce side. The inflow of immigrants into the workforce has slowed tremendously, and so there's less new entrants into the workforce, and nobody really knows what AI is going to do to the workforce, right? I think we all think there's opportunities for efficiency, and that's real positive, but nobody really knows what that's going to mean in 5 or 10 years for, sort of entry-level jobs or manufacturing jobs or anything like that. And so those are two, sort of this inflation uncertainty. How do we get it down to 2? And what is the workforce going to look like, and workforce participation rate going to look like over the next few years? Really makes sort of this a challenging decision for the Fed on where mortgage rates and where the Fed fund rate really ought to settle in. So you ask a really good and important question. What's the right rate? My answer is yeah. That's a good question, and there are a lot of questions that have to be answered to figure that out, right? And I'm not smart enough to figure out the answer. That's why the guys at the Fed, I guess, get paid the big bucks, I guess.
Well, and seemingly most bankers would say that, look, being down around 3% probably not sustainable, but 7% is probably too high as well. That if you're somewhere in that 5% range, then you're in a spot that both sides can win. That banks can make money and that consumers can handle it. But that certainly is anecdotal. I'm curious, and I want to get to this payment system in just a second, but so many times we think about banking in terms of personal finance, consumer finance. Like we've got a checking account, we've got a savings account, maybe we've got a mortgage with a bank or with a secondary loan provider, or Fannie or Freddie or wherever that is, and we don't think as much about commercial lending. In your mind and across the state of Mississippi with bankers, is that almost two industries? And are we looking at it right if we kind of consider a delineation between consumer finance and business finance, or do those have to operate in conjunction for us to be in a healthy banking environment overall?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And yeah, they need to operate in conjunction, right? I mean, if you kind of think about it in a community, commercial loans generally drive employers. Right. So if I run a manufacturing company and I want to make a capital outlay, I'm probably going to need to borrow some money. Right. And that's going to lead to maybe me paying my employees more or hiring more employees. Right. So then that sort of commercial loan that drives employment turns into what kind of financial services do the individual consumers in that community need? And so we, I think, as a state are really blessed to have a lot of really strong local community banks that are really good at both, right? They're really good at individual relationships on the consumer side, but also sort of taking that relationship model and turning that into commercial growth by sort of really getting to know the needs of their business customers too. And so, yeah, the short answer is yes. The better aligned, the consumer lending market is, and the commercial lending market, the better off the local economy is going to be. And if you really, I can get existential on this stuff, Richard, but if you think about it, we're one of the few countries in the world where those decisions of like how does capital flow out really get made at the local level. And it's you go to Europe there are way less banks than we have in the U.S. If you go to Canada, there are only 70 banks total in Canada, right? We have around 70 that operate in Mississippi, right? And so that sort of width of the banking system, the breadth, like the how many banks we have in the country, allows for really localized and focused decision making on allocation of credit, and that really drives local economic growth. It's uniquely American, and it's been one of the reasons we've had, the strongest economy of the 20th and 21st century. So we take that for granted a lot. I don't think a lot of people sit around and think, man, I'm really lucky to have a local bank in my town. But it's a very important sort of piece of how our economy works, and it's something that we shouldn't take for granted. It's something we ought to be thankful for.
Got a good friend that's been in the banking industry for a long time now, and we were talking not too long ago, and he talked about mail fraud when it comes to banking. Checks that are stolen from the mail and then are altered and are deposited, and he said you would be shocked at how much that happens. I think a lot of people would be shocked. I mean, there are people who are like, I've got to write a check today. I don't remember the last time I saw a checkbook, because we operate in this digital world, this Venmo world. And yet this is a really big deal, and it sounds like it's more widespread than maybe most people realized. And so there's some stuff that's going into effect. Talk to us about this, like paper checks going away in terms of federal payments.
Yeah, so huge issue, and has been a huge issue really since the pandemic, right? A lot of things broke in the pandemic. The Postal Service was one of them. And there's been sort of all sorts of reports of organized crime sort of infiltrating the Postal Service. Usually they're getting access to the keys to the blue boxes. Then they're driving around at night and they're opening the blue boxes and taking mail out before the pickup. And then, taking any of the checks that are in the mailbox with them. So step one, if you're a consumer and you want to protect yourself, don't mail checks. It's not as safe as it used to be. One of the things we've done here locally, we worked with the legislature last year to pass some new laws to create a state mail theft regime. Mail theft has always been a federal crime, but there was no corresponding state crime. So it's now a state crime also to steal mail. And we actually had some meetings with the Attorney General's office last week about how using that new law is going to move forward. So that's a local step we've taken. But because of all of these stolen checks being taken out of the mail, the federal government has also lost a lot of money. And so in order to sort of rectify that, the president has encouraged Treasury to eliminate as many federal paper checks as possible. And so they've asked Americans, if you receive a paper check for Social Security, if you're a veteran and you get a veteran benefit, if you're used to getting a paper check on your tax refund, Treasury really wants to change those transactions from paper check transactions to digital transactions. And so you got to have a bank account usually to receive a digital transaction. So if you're used to getting a check in the mail, those technically, I think September 30th is supposed to be the last day that those checks go out. Now, if the government doesn't have a way to get an individual their benefit, they're probably still going to mail them a check. But if you as an individual are used to receiving a paper Social Security check or veterans check, or any other type of government benefit, you really need to go talk to your bank and help them, let them help you get in touch with Treasury, get those paper checks that are getting mailed to you converted to a direct deposit into your bank account. You'll be a lot safer, and it actually will protect the taxpayers too, who stand to lose sometimes when these checks are stolen. So it is interesting. It's another thing we sort of take for granted. How we get paid, but yeah, it's something that I hope individuals go take a look at.
I think we covered a lot of ground. Gordon, I appreciate your time this morning. Great visiting, and I look forward to catching up soon.
Thanks, Richard.
Gordon Fellows, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association.
From the Seabrook.
RC Mornings with Richard Cross.
Yeah. Let's get on with the show.
Check it out. Super Talk Mississippi.
ICC is a ticking on down the line. Well, I'm a little overweight and my logbook's way behind. But nothing bothers me tonight. I can dodge all the scales all right. 6 days on the road and I'm gonna make it home tonight. Well, my rig's a little old.
Pleasure to be with you. It is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Busy week in terms of places that SuperTalk is going to be. Tomorrow, both middays with Gerard Gibbert and Sports Talk Mississippi will be live in New Albany to kick off the Tallahatchie River Festival. Tallahatchie River Fest presented by B&A Bank, Ace Fiber, and Renaissance Bank. For more information, go to newalbanymainstreet.com. This project is partially funded by a grant through Visit Mississippi. And then on Thursday afternoon, Sports Talk Mississippi will be at Scruggs Farm Lawn and Garden in Saltillo. You can take advantage of their end-of-season sale, 0% financing for 72 months on John Deere compact tractors, 2.5% for 48 months on Gators, 0% for 2 years, 24 months on commercial mowers. So be sure to check that out. And remember, if you're going to be in Oxford this weekend, football Friday nights in Oxford, keep rolling. This Friday at the Lyric, get ready for an old-fashioned hall party featuring the 9-piece funk powerhouse 5-star Funk Lounge. It's the biggest party on the square before the LSU home game. Doors open at 7. VIP happy hour kicks off with heavy hors d'oeuvres and live music from Stephen Pillow. Then at 8:30, the funk takes over. Don't miss your chance. General admission and VIP tickets are still available. It's 5-star Funk Lounge at the hall party this Friday at the Lyric, presented by Ratchet Entertainment, sponsored by SuperTalk Mississippi and the Grove Collective. So be sure to check that out this weekend. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. Hey, Lance, you still there, buddy?
Hey, what's up, man?
I just
figured
you were taking a nap.
No, I was listening. I told Gordon I always enjoy banking conversations.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You do.
Well,
one of the things that we didn't have time to get into.
One.
Yeah, and next time we have Gordon, we'll try to get into this. It's fascinating to me how unique the different lending areas are in Mississippi. I live obviously in Oxford, a relatively small town in terms of population, but a large town in terms of banking presence. There have been a lot of a lot of banks that have opened their doors here because of the demand on both the commercial side and the residential side. And one of the things that I've heard over and over bankers say is, man, what a different market than where I was in Cleveland or in Greenwood or in Kosciuszko or even in Madison or the Jackson metro area. The lending needs, the borrowing needs, are so different in different parts of the state. You know, there may be a specific set of needs in Northeast Mississippi, in Corinth and Iuka, than there are in Oxford and Tupelo. And Oxford and Tupelo may be different than the Jackson metro area, and the Jackson metro area different from the Pine Belt, and the Pine Belt different from the coast, and all of them vastly different from what's needed in the Delta. It really is, for a state of about 3 million people, so one of the smaller states in terms of population, it is a diverse lending environment within our state.
It's like having about 8, of those the judgment weights. You put a little weight on this and it goes up over there, but have like 8 or 9 of those attached and trying to figure out what is the exact perfect market for each region is always going to be one of the most difficult things to do, because you want to loan for homes and businesses and farms, and over here may not be as lucrative. So you really got to focus your efforts, and banking's one of those where, they don't like losing money,
No, they don't.
Money, they want it to get paid back. So a lot of that, I love having that conversation, though, especially as you go deeper into the mandate for employment and also keeping prices fairly stable. That is very difficult to do. And I'm glad that he went into a little detail on that, because it is fascinating. It is not easy, and too much money hitting the system at one time, you get too much money sloshing around. It cheapens it up. And you create supply and demand problems also. And same on the other side. If there's not enough money out there, then it really does hamstring investment and many other things. So it's that perfect little weight in there that you're looking for, that equilibrium, so hard to figure out. Because we're a globalist type of economy now. You know?
Kamala Harris is on a book tour now. Her new book, 107, is on its way out. Excerpts have come out, and there are people that are frustrated. Tim Walz was the VP candidate alongside Kamala Harris. You certainly remember that. And there were a lot of people that thought others should have been the VP candidate, and maybe that would have given Harris a better chance to win, whether that was Josh Shapiro or somebody else, maybe even Pete Buttigieg. Kamala Harris writes in the book that she couldn't pick Pete Buttigieg because there were only 107 days until the election, and he's gay. And so when she sat down last night with Rachel Maddow asked her about that.
I guess I'd ask you to just elaborate on that a little bit. It's hard to hear. With you running as, you're the first woman elected vice president. You're a black woman and a South Asian woman elected to that high office, very nearly elected president. To say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay is hard to hear.
No. That's not what I said. That he couldn't be on the ticket because he is gay. My point, as I write in the book, is that I was clear that in 107 days, in one of the most hotly contested elections for President of the United States, against someone like Donald Trump who knows no floor, to be a black woman running for President of the United States and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized it would be a real risk. No matter how, I've been an advocate and an ally of the LGBT community my entire life. So it wasn't about any prejudice on my part, but we had such a short period of time.
All right. It was hard to hear, Rachel Maddow says, that you couldn't pick Pete Buttigieg because he was gay. No. That's not what I said. That's not what I wrote in the book. I didn't not pick Pete because he was gay. It was this compressed time frame where it was a risk because he was gay.
Well, and also because of potentially bumping out the president of the United States. Yeah, that 107-day time frame didn't give her a lot of room to wiggle. But did you hear something there as well? It seems to me that labels are very important to Kamala. Gay and black and all this stuff. I mean, that is that the rhetoric that we're going to continue hearing from the left? It's always about a label.
Well, now hold on a second, Lance. Let's be fair. The
Nazi
left,
and Christian and all that.
The left
stuff
has made it abundantly clear that we've got to turn down the temperature and we've got to stop the name calling. And it's abundantly clear that is important to Kamala Harris in her own words. Just listen.
And right now we are dealing with, as I called him at my speech on the ellipse, a tyrant.
Oh.
We used to compare the strength of our democracy to communist dictators. That's what we're dealing with right now in Donald Trump.
Oh. Those are words of endearment. Tyrant? Communist dictator? Which is it? Do we turn down the heat? Or do we keep comparing them to Nazis? Let's go with Nazis. Do we turn down the heat? Or do we use words like tyrant to describe the President of the United States? Hold on. Oh, tyrant. Let's go with tyrant. Do we turn down the heat? Do we tone down the rhetoric? Or do we compare the President of the United States to a communist dictator? Hold on a second. Let me think. Turn down the heat. calm the rhetoric or communist dictator. Let's go with communist dictator. And then there was this. The insinuation by the former Madam Vice President that it really was a close race.
The sitting vice president enters the race against a former president of the United States who's been running for 10 years with 107 days to go. And it ended up being the closest presidential election in the 21st century.
That's right. Closest presidential election in the 21st century. She lost by 229,766 votes. Not actually the closest presidential race of the 21st century, because in 2000, Bush won by 537 votes. In 2016, Trump won by 77,744 votes. In 2020, Biden won by 42,918 votes. So when she says the closest election of the 21st century, what she really means is the fourth closest election of the 21st century. I think that's what she meant.
He's got everything you need to know to start your day. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi, supertalk.fm, and the SuperTalk Mississippi app. Now, here's more with Richard Cross.
C-Spire text line open, 601-879-4395, 601-879-4395. Love to hear from you. Always appreciate the interaction. Last segment of the day, alongside Lance Talbert, I'm Richard Cross. I think out of morbid curiosity, I'm going to have to read 107.
Yeah,
you
find out
so?
what she did with $1 billion. That'd be great. I mean, I'm curious. Honestly, I don't know how you can lose that badly and blow $1 billion, and people still want to hear what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, I mean, you know.
Ron in Ocean Springs, did you notice that Maddow stated that Harris was first Asian woman vice president?
Mm-hmm.
That was after she said she was the first black vice president. And Harris said when she ran for Senate that she was the first Indian woman for Senate. Yeah. Indian or of Asian race. That's from Ron in Ocean Springs.
These labels are real important,
yeah.
As you can tell. I mean, you know, just keep printing them out and sticking them on people's forehead so you can, you know, call them something.
And we're not
instead of a human being.
We're not conflating Madam Vice President with Senator Warren, are we?
You can be whoever you want to be, I guess, today. Depends on what's convenient. Let's don't be human beings, though. Let's be black, white. Let's be Nazis. Let's be communists. Let's put labels on everything. How about it? And let's see how that goes. Europe is a great example of that working so well.
You know who's always fun to listen to? Jasmine!
Oh, Lord.
Oh, Jasmine. She was on I guess we still call it a podcast when it's video. By the way, I hated to correct D.A. Colom this morning, but when he referred to us as a podcast, like, yeah, available on podcast, but you're talking to the entire state of Mississippi right now, live and on the radio. But if you can't catch MRC on the radio, it is available to you via podcast and on demand at supertalk.fm, wherever you get your podcasts.
And you get bite-sized pieces, too, as well as the complete
That's
interview.
right.
So, you know, if you're in a hurry and you just want to hear the interview and you want to get back to the good stuff later, you know, you can just hit those interviews.
You can grab those.
Yep.
Usually you can get at least clips of those on Mornings Cross. All right, here's Jasmine. I guess I should probably call her Jasmine, but it just, I don't know, it feels more fun.
You can wave all the flags you want to, but I am telling you right now that the most unpatriotic people that we have in this country are MAGA and this president. We are the real patriots, and it is time for us to take our flag back and show people what America is about. You can't say that you love the Constitution while decimating it with every single stroke of a pen for an executive order, while decimating while you are disrespecting our troops that have signed up to protect our freedoms, not just here, but abroad. And then you're taking people's freedoms away using those exact same troops.
Wait, hold on a second.
I don't think I understood any of that.
Well, nor did I, nor should I expect you to, because, I don't know, you have a functioning brain. President Trump disrespecting our troops. Now, I understand that there are a lot of people that would go back and pull an old soundbite, the Suckers soundbite. I think there were some context things there related to that, but whatever. If you want to say it was a bad moment for him, have you watched how military personnel interact with the President of the United States? Now, I'm not talking about the high brass that were appointed to leadership positions under the previous administration. I'm talking about the rank and file members of the military, the men and the women standing at the steps to Air Force One or to Marine One. I'm talking about the interactions that the president has on a daily basis with those who serve the country. And it was a veiled reference to National Guard going in to protect our cities. Yes, the president has used a lot of executive orders in his time in office, similar to what Joe Biden did in his time in office, similar to what Barack Obama did in his time in office. I don't love governing by executive order, but because of the mess that Congress is and has been for a long time now, it seems to be about the only way you can get things done. You know, like when, with the stroke of an auto pen, probably, Joe Biden ripped away all the progress on the border wall in an effort to make it as easy as possible for illegal people to come into the United States. And, oh, by the way, we didn't get into this morning. There is some information that is being disseminated through the intelligence community that we better be on high alert for homeland attacks from Iran proxies. Pretty glad that Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump and others seem more committed to defending our country than has been the case in recent years. We're out of time. Too short, as always, for Lance. I'm Richard. Thanks for being with us. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Have a great day.
A Super Talk Mississippi media production.